just before we start the show, I want to take an opportunity to invite you to join me for the Podfluence Weekly newsletter, which is available both on LinkedIn and through the official newsletter channel. Now, if you are on LinkedIn and it's easier for you to follow there, then please just click on the link in the show notes, which will take you straight to Podfluence on LinkedIn, where you can subscribe for free and get weekly updates on Podfluence articles as well as episodes. If you would like to subscribe to the full newsletter where you'll get additional materials and, as my little incentive to you, my pre-podcast guest checklist for you to use when you're appearing on podcast shows so that you can be fully prepared every single time, then please click the link to the official newsletter in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Speaking of Influence, the show about public speaking and presentation skills and influence and persuasion with your host, John Ball. The Speaking of Influence podcast is published and distributed using Buzzsprout. If you want to get your podcast started today, check out the link in the show notes. Okay, hello, welcome to Speaking of Influence. Now, this is a first for the show today because we are actually going live. We've never done that with the Speaking of Influence podcast before, but we thought it would be something that's fun to do. And I'm joined on my very first ever live podcast episode by an incredible speaker, a presenter and after dinner speaker. He's very entertaining, has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the world of presenting, even on the old telly box. So please welcome to the show, Jeremy Nicholas.
Hi, how are you? Fancy doing it live? This is scary, isn't it? Crikey, whose idea was this?
You know, it is a little bit scary, and yeah, it's also kind of a lot of fun. I've been playing with the lives and doing a few shows, and actually have been something I was really terrified of doing before has turned out to be a lot of fun. And I guess you don't really know what could happen. Anything could go wrong. Last night, in the middle of a online training program that I was doing, the cleaner here tripped the power switch and everything went off. So that must have been fun. Hopefully we're not going to have anything like that happen to us whilst we're going live today.
Yeah, let's hope so. I've always enjoyed live better than recorded because if you do something live, you know they're not going to edit it out. Whereas if it's recorded, someone's going to. So I started in radio, and then when I moved into television, we'd be recording a show, and I'd say something a little bit funny, and they go, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know you were going to say that. Could you just do that again?" Because perhaps I was holding up something, and they didn't have the close in, and the next time it'd never be quite as good because it wouldn't be as spontaneous. They'd say, "Oh, but that's not the script," and I say, "Well, yeah, because I made it up." "Oh, but we didn't know you were going to do it." No, I didn't know either. It just came out. And so that's why I always loved live radio better than telly, because you have an idea, it comes out your head, comes out your mouth, and that's it.
I love the spontaneity about it. One of the things I think is really attractive about podcasting is that you get to listen in on people's conversations, and it's rare. I mean, other than when someone's really sort of fluffed up on a recording, or if it's just gone on way too long and I need to edit it down, I really don't edit my shows. I just kind of cut the beginning where we're sort of like getting started and the end, just so it's like people aren't waiting around, and then we just go into it, and then I just leave it. I try not to edit anything out of it. So doing it this way, I think when I'm taking a break from recording the show for several months at the start of next year, and when I come back, I think I'm probably going to aim to do all the shows live because I think it's actually a fun way of doing it. So this was kind of your influence on me, Jeremy, that has pushed the show to going into a live format in the future.
Yeah, it was me that suggested it, wasn't it? And,
it was you that suggested it. Yeah. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. It's I think it's a really exciting way to take the show, and potentially even gives the opportunity for anyone who might join us online who's live to ask questions or post comments in the comment box as well that I might even show on screen if they're not rude. So
yeah. So it's 3 minutes past 10 o'clock in the morning in London, England. What time is it in Valencia?
It's 1 hour later in Valencia, although it shouldn't be. We're on the Greenwich Meridian, same as you. But thanks to Franco, who wanted to appease Hitler and put Spain on the same time zone as Germany during the war. And for some reason, Spain has never changed that back. They've dug up Franco's grave, they've moved his body, but they haven't bothered to change back the time to put us back where we should be. I find that a bit strange.
Yeah, the more I hear about Franco, the less I like him. I'd heard all that other things, but now, on top of all of those bad things he did, he's messed up your time as well. I mean, that's me and Franco through, unfortunately.
I know. I thought he was so warm and cuddly before, and it changed my mind completely. So, Jeremy, for our audience, tell us a little bit more about what you do, like some of your experience and what it is you do professionally now.
Yeah, tell us who you are, Jeremy. What the heck do you want? Who is this man? So I started as a BBC news broadcaster in radio, doing news bulletins and reporting, and then I moved into sport and then light entertainment and then back to news, but with a bit of a light entertainment twist, because I would do the funny story at the end of the news bulletin. So when you're watching the news, I don't know if it's the same in Spain, or I think most parts of the world, you have the serious news, the murder, the politics, and the crime, and then you'll perhaps have some weather and some sport, and then at the end there'll be a funny story about a duck that goes to the pub and has a beer or something. So I would do that one. That would be it's called an "and finally" story.
Right.
So that's kind of my background. And then I started, because I was the guy off the radio, I started being asked to compare conferences, and then I realized that actually, certainly in the UK, lots of speakers at conferences are very, very boring. And they're just, just send you to sleep. And I thought there has to be a better way of doing this. And so one time, I think this would be about 20 years ago now, I was at this conference and I'd been paid to host a 3-day event. They've got people from all over the world to come to the UK for this event. And the chief exec of the organization was just so boring. He droned on for an hour. And at the end, after we were having the sort of feedback, I said, your presentation, would you like me to make that a bit more interesting for you? And he could have been absolutely furious, but actually he said, yes, please, because no one else has ever told me it was boring. And he became my first client. And since then, what I do is I help people be less boring. But I tend not to use the word boring in marketing because it puts people off. But, the phrase I use is make you more entertaining and engaging. And then alongside that, I've done stand-up comedy, and I've still written funny stuff for radio and TV, and I do a lot of after-dinner speaking.
Now, I've seen from your website, I've seen some of the stuff that you do in presentations, and you're definitely an entertaining and engaging and very loved presenter. Like, people love watching and listening to you. And having seen you have a podcast as well, yeah, and having seen some of that as well, that's really entertaining too. What is your podcast called?
So I do a YouTube show called The After Dinner Show. And I did that in lockdown just because a lot of my time work is in the evenings, going to dinners, eating a lot of chicken dinners and entertaining people from banks and organizations and things. And of course, they all got scrapped. They all got cancelled. There were no dinners. So I thought the only way I can have dinners is to start cooking my own. And so I made up the show called The After Dinner Show. And I got all the after dinner speakers and any keynote speakers that I thought were a bit entertaining. I'd have 3 on each show. So it'd be a perfect little Zoom window of 4. And the idea was they had to tell a true story. They had to tell it live, and it had to be from personal experience. And that was it, really. And we do that once. I used to do it once a week. I just do it once a month now because, work's beginning to pick up. But I don't know about you. If I think of something funny during the day and I haven't got an outlet for it, it just feels like it's going to erupt, like a spot coming out of my skin. And so in the times when I've been between radio shows or I haven't been writing for a magazine or something, I think I'll just have to ring someone up and say, I've just thought of this. I just need to tell someone. And that's really what the point of the after dinner show is, just to get some of these things out.
Yeah, and unlike yourself, I'm not a comedian, although I try to be funny and I love making people laugh. But this has been one of the things that I've been doing in my show, of having a series where I've been taking a look at humor as a presentation tool, because it's one that people tend to shy away from, and also looking at it as a very, I think, a very powerful tool of influence and persuasion as well, which is one of the other aspects of the show. I think in terms of what I've examined in this, it's one of the most powerful and often doesn't really get talked about in some of the psychological books and studies that are done into influence and persuasion. And yet I think it's an incredible tool. What would be your thoughts on humor as both as a presentation tool and as perhaps a tool of influence and persuasion?
Yeah, so I'm a fellow of the Professional Speaking Association of UK and Ireland, and so we belong to the Global Speakers Federation. So there's 15 odd organizations throughout the world, the biggest being the National Speakers Association of America. And they have a saying, should you be funny when you're speaking in public, only if you want to get paid? So that's certainly in the professional speaking world. Now, a lot of people watching this may not want to be a professional speaker. They may just speak as part of their job. But I always think if you put a bit of humor in, you're more likely to get asked again. And so that's going to help advance your career. If you're the person in your team that likes presenting and then you're a little bit funny, then they might say, right, you were good at the regional conference. Can you do the national conference? And I think being funny does a couple of things. One is it shows you have confidence in what you're doing. So the audience relax. And I think when you're watching any kind of speaker, the worst thing is when you're worried for them and you think, oh God, this is going on a bit. Oh, he seems to have lost his way. Oh, she doesn't seem to have the right slides. So as an audience member, the first thing I want is not to worry about them. So if they crack a joke early on, I think, oh, that's fine. They're going to be all right. We can relax. And the second thing is you're going to hold their attention. I always say if they're laughing, they're listening. Now, that doesn't mean that you've got to put loads and loads of jokes in because it might not be appropriate to your topic. You know, if you're there, if it's the annual conference and you're going to announce some redundancies, don't come on with some Monty Python gags and a bit of Benny. You know, it's not going to move the room. But I think even in adversity, you know, with the pandemic at the moment, some of the best lines I've seen at virtual events have been to do with coronavirus. You know, but sensitively dealt with. Don't dwell on the deaths, but dwell on the nuisance of wearing a mask and your glasses steaming up, or you know, the things you used to be able to do, the things you're looking forward to do. So it's just always a question of you know, being sensitive with it and not going too mad on it. Right. Well, it looks to me like John's gone and I'm still here. So why don't I tell you a story while he's away? So I interviewed this vampire and it was Christopher Lee. So he obviously wasn't a real vampire. He was the actor Christopher Lee. Now, what would you say Christopher Lee's most famous role in movies is? Dracula. Yeah, he was Dracula in about 15 different films. And so he came into I was doing the afternoon show on BBC Radio London. And he came in and he was in the studio and he wanted to talk about his new film, which was Police Academy Mission to Moscow, you know, very prestigious movie. And so obviously he wanted to give that a bit of a plug. And I'm wanting to ask him about Dracula because I was a horror film fan. My producer was a horror film fan. And we had loads of Dracula questions prepared. But every time I asked Christopher Lee, the actor, about Dracula, he just wanted to talk about Police Academy Mission to Moscow. You know, bearing in mind, he was in some fantastic films. He was in The Wicker Man. He was in Lord of the Rings. He was the Dark Lord in Lord of the Rings. He was in Star Wars, some of the later ones. And so he just wanted to talk about his latest film. He did not want to talk about all his old films, and especially didn't want to talk about Dracula because he didn't want to be pigeonholed as just a vampire. So I started asking him loads of questions about Dracula, and every time he just rolled his eyes and he said, I don't really want to talk about Dracula. I mean, I'm an actor, not just a Dracula. And I said, yeah, but I think you're best known for being Dracula, aren't you? And he said, no, I'm best known for being an actor, of which one role is Dracula. And I said, yeah, but you played that role in 15 films. And he wasn't happy. So he kept steering it back to Mission to Moscow. I kept steering it back to Dracula. And eventually it was getting a little bit uncomfortable. And I noticed the producer so the producer's in another room over there behind a glass screen. And the producer starts typing up little notes saying, ask him more about Dracula. It's funny when he gets angry. Now, bear in mind, he's safe because he's in another room. Hello, John. You're back.
Hello, I'm back. Yes, so somebody knocked out the internet connection, which is always fun during a presentation. So where are we at, Jerry? I think you were keeping people entertained there for us.
Yeah, so I was just doing a story about the time I interviewed Christopher Lee, the actor. Oh no, right. So I'm interviewing Christopher Lee, the actor. This is a few years ago because he's dead now, and he didn't want to talk about being Dracula, even though he played Dracula in 15 movies. He wanted to talk about his new film, which was Police Academy Mission to Moscow, you know, which obviously a very prestigious movie. He wanted to give it the credit it deserved. And I kept asking him about being a vampire. And so as I kept steering it back to vampires and he was getting really, really angry, the producer wrote on the screen, he's through the glass in another room, ask him more about Dracula. It's funny when he gets angry. Now, bear in mind, he was safe in his little room. I was in with the vampire. I didn't have any crucifix or garlic or anything. He was safe through there. So we did go back to Police Academy. And then the producers started writing up, people are now ringing in saying it's really funny when you make him angry. Keep asking him about Dracula. So I did, and we did that. And it was very uncomfortable. And we got to the end of the interview and I was really relieved to have survived. And at the end, I got up and went to shake hands with him and went round his side of the desk in the BBC studios. And I noticed to my horror that by accident, a second screen had been left switched on round his side. And he'd seen all of that stuff saying, ask him more about Dracula. It's funny when he gets angry. And he'd seen it all and he'd kept calm. But I did not sleep a wink that night because I just thought he's going to come for me in the night. But so I kept my window bolted. I had a steak by the bed because I get hungry when I'm scared. And because I know he is dead, isn't he? But you never really know with that sort if they're going to come back.
Right, yeah. There's I've seen those Hammer horror films, and he always seems to come back somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably should never rest easy. He might grant you he might grant you eternal life.
Yeah, I mean, London's scared of coronavirus. I'm still more scared of Christopher Lee coming back and biting me in the neck because of a bad interview I did about 20 years ago.
But nowadays, I'm sure things are better now, and that's an amazing story. I think he was an incredible person. Someone I think, someone would love to have met. So I think that's wonderful.
Star Wars brings loads of things.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I think they CGI'd him even into one of the recent ones, right?
Mm. Yeah, because he wasn't available on account of being dead. That's what they did.
Well, yeah, same unfortunately with Carrie Fisher, I think, and I don't think CGI is quite there enough yet to be fully convincing that it's the real people there. But I'm sure we're not too far off it, which is scary in itself. You know, you see all these deep fake stuff where they can get people to say just about anything, like get their voice recorded and synthesized, and that's pretty scary stuff.
So what that illustrated there when the line went down is I just went to one of my signature stories, and I've got probably about 85 stories I could have done at that point. And I actually started a story and realized it was very English centric with not much global appeal. And I said, oh, actually, this is a better one because everyone would have heard of Christopher Lee. Whereas my other one was about a local radio station in Hull in the northeast of England. And it relies mainly on me doing a very, very accurate Hull impression, because it's one of the hardest accents to do. But then I realized actually most people in the world just hear British, you know, they can't identify between the regional accents. Most people of the world, there's two British accents. One is quite posh like this, and the other one's a bit London like this. You all right, mate? Cool, blimey, governor, cheeky Mary Poppins like that. And I was going to do Hull, northeast England, all right, where they drink Coca-Cola and a glass of dry white wine that I bought for $9.99. And the subtleties in Yorkshire, that would go down really well. But across the world, people are thinking it still just sounds like you're doing the Queen.
Exactly. They just hear it in English or British accent.
That doesn't make laugh a bit when you've got a British accent. And I think, well, but there isn't a British accent, is there? Because the Scottish accent's so different to the English and the Welsh and the Irish, you know, Northern Irish. It's just,
yeah, but it is interesting how people can't hear accents, because times I've been asked if I was Scottish or Welsh in other countries with people who just don't recognize the accents. But I'm sure it's just as much the case of I don't hear distinct regional accents here in Spain where I live as much as someone who is local can distinguish them and probably tell pretty quickly where someone comes from by the way that they speak. But I did even live in Hull for several years as a kid, and I wouldn't have known how to do a Hull accent. I was there for maybe 2 or 3 years as a child, and then we moved south, and it all went away. And now I do speak a bit more BBC.
Well, I do always encourage speakers that I coach that want to be funnier to do accents in stories. So, because I'm sure you'll agree, stories are way better in presentations than loads of facts. Facts people forget, stories they remember. And the key is you've got to wrap a fact up in a story to make it memorable. So it's like the fact is the cake, the story around it is the icing on the cake that makes you eat it, and then you remember it. And a great way to make people remember is to do a funny accent. And my top tip for accents is you need a key word or phrase that gets you into that accent. So for me, Hull, which is quite a difficult accent to do, is Coca-Cola instead of Coca-Cola, and a glass of dry white wine that I bought for $9.99, because their I sound is ah. And pretty much every accent I do, I have a little phrase that gets me into. So London would always be, "Cool, blimey, governor," and straight away I think, right, yeah, that's London. But also the key is you don't have to learn how to do the accent all the time. All you've got to do is learn to say whatever the person in your story says. So it might just be 10 words in a sentence, and you just learn that in that accent. So in my story, my whole story, it was all about the time I got ambushed live on air by a man with a machine gun. And the guy in the Hull accent says, "Take me through to the studio now, I've got a machine gun." So all I needed to do was learn that. And now you really want to know that story, but I'm not going to tell it.
And but that's interesting, because I mean, I over my time, especially over interviewing people on my podcast, I've heard mixed advice about doing accents in stories, and some people say stay away from it, do it all in your own voice. But maybe it depends on the kind of thing you're doing. Like for humor, I do think it's important to get into characterization. I think that's a really key part of being able to entertain, and especially if you want to be humorous, and accents are a part of that. But I think some people worry of this sort of fine line between it being entertaining or even funny, but towards being offensive. At what point does trying to do a certain accent become offensive? And some people aren't quite sure where the line is, and just say, well, just don't do it, because we don't know where the line is.
Yeah. So I think you've certainly got to avoid racial stereotypes. And there's some accents. I would say don't do a stereotypical person from a country that then reflects them in a bad way, but do an accent of somebody in the story that just makes them different to what you sound like. So I did a show in South Africa. I do a show at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is a humorous look at public speaking. It's called What Are You Talking About? And I premiered it in Singapore, and then I did just before I premiered it there, I did a preview in Johannesburg, and I thought that's a long way from the UK. If it's rubbish, no one will probably get to hear about it, so that's fine. I'll try it all out. And I was billed as being the 11th most famous BBC Jeremy. This was my advanced publicity. I was the 11th most famous BBC Jeremy, after Jeremy Paxman, Jeremy Clarkson, Jeremy Vine, Jeremy Bowen, Jeremy Ball, who's the East Midlands Today social affairs correspondent, who I just put in because he's a friend of mine. And I claimed I was number 11. And actually, I think I'm probably about number 6, but 11 sounded better because it meant I could rant about being just outside the top 10. And so on the way into the show, I was greeting the audience as they were handing their tickets in, just as a way of breaking down the barriers. I was welcoming them on the way in. And this lady said to me, "Oh, you're not the BBC Jeremy I thought you were going to be." And I said, "Oh, sorry, which one were you expecting?" "No, I can't remember his name, but he's not you." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. How do you know he's not me?" And she went, "No, I know what he looks like, and he's tall and good looking." And so that was nice, wasn't it? So then, of course, when I got on stage, straight away, I had to mention that. And I say, "I'm really sorry you've got the short, ugly one." And then in the Edinburgh show itself, I thought I want to do that story about the preview and the South African lady who said, "You're not the BBC Jeremy I thought you were going to be." But one of my other stories also has a South African accent in, which was about the time I was presenting on how to use humour in business in 2010 at Emperor's Palace in Johannesburg. And I split my trousers just before I went on. And there's a whole kerfuffle about this. And then I eventually told the audience what happened. And at the end, I said, "Are there any questions?" And this big Afrikaner guy stood up and said, "Now tell me this. Do you always wear those trousers for this talk?" Like I packed a pair of comedy trousers. And then I thought, well, it seems a bit of a shame to have 2 South African accents in it. So in the Edinburgh show, I made the woman Welsh. And I said that it took place in Cardiff. And she said, "Oh, you're not the BBC Jeremy I thought you were going to be." And that's fine. I don't feel like I've lied. It still works. And does anyone think, really, I heard an earlier version and it was in Johannesburg? Yeah, it was. But I just thought, show your full range, Jeremy. I mean, how many people can do South African and Welsh? Yay, you're bound to get it's going to be worth another extra star on your review. It wasn't. I still only got 3. But I did get 4 stars from the Wee review, which is one of the friends. But to me, it sounds like a review of going to the loo. But it's called the Wee review. It's Scottish. Wee means little in Scottish.
Yeah, I think there are some websites that actually do that as well. Those kinds of things. But let's not go there. But so you're doing a show in Edinburgh. That's a pretty major thing. I think for anyone who does that, is it not a little bit terrifying at first before you actually go out there and do it?
Yeah, it is. the more terrifying than doing it is getting an audience, because it's the largest arts festival in the world. It's the whole of August, and all the top comedians in the world go there. So why would anyone come and see me when they can see people they know off the TV, famous international artists? So I always try and make my show, it's about speaking and communication, and incidentally it's funny, rather than it'll be the funniest show you'll ever see. Because, for example, I never swear, and most comedians would swear, and so people would expect that, and they've almost get so desensitized that if you don't put a swear word in on the punchline, they don't even know it's a punchline, because it can't be, because he didn't use the F word. But I don't ever use the F word, so that's how I distinguished it from. I said, well, it's more about storytelling and communicating and how to engage your audience, but incidentally there'll be some funny stuff. And so I think if you're ever trying to get paid for speaking, you have to have a real niche, and you have to go really deep with that niche, and not, so if you say you talk about presentation skills, well, lots of people do that. So you've really got to target it. You specialize in how to make accountancy interesting, or you target, a niche like lawyers or something. Or my big thing is adding humor. And like you say, most people shy away from it, don't they? They think, no, I don't want to do that. And the reason people steer away from humor is they don't want to offend people. Well, my message is, don't be offensive, don't swear. I never say anything racist, sexist, homophobic, anything that's going to make anyone in the audience feel threatened. And also, if it was on the front page of a newspaper that I'd said this, would I mind? And if someone told my mum I'd said it, would I mind? Those are my things. And if it gets through all of those, it's in. And it does help that I'm not racist, sexist, or homophobic, whereas I think a lot of people are, and they think, oh, I shouldn't really say that. But for me, I don't even think it. So that's fine. And then I think the other reason people don't use humor is they're worried they're going to lose their credibility. Is that something that you would think that, I better not do that because people might not then believe me?
I wouldn't. I would just go for it. But I know when I encounter people, it's like, especially in things like my Toastmasters club and things like that, where people want to try and be a bit more engaging and funny. They're more scared of that sometimes than of actually just getting up and doing the speeches, which often for many people is terrifying enough. Just getting up in front of a bunch of people and opening your mouth is one of the hardest parts. But to add trying to be funny or trying to get people to laugh on top of that. But I think that is kind of the issue of it. It's like, well, the whole time, if you start telling yourself, I have to try and get people to laugh, you're already kind of telling yourself you can't do it. I do think there are people who just think they can't be funny, or that people are just going to think that they're wasting the time, or that they just won't take them, like, by being funny, people won't take you seriously.
Yeah. So I think the important thing, I run a group program for speakers called Talking Funny for Speakers, and the whole message of that group, we have an online call once a week, and they're always trying to be out and out comedians at the start, and by the end they've got the hang of it. No, you're still being a speaker. It is, I talk about that icing on the cake. It's just the icing on the cake. Your main message is not to get laughs. Your main message is how to be more creative in workshops or whatever your talk is about. And then all the humor stuff is to keep them interested. It's just little bits to keep them hanging on. And so we start off by saying jokes are a bad idea, stories are a good idea. Because if I do a joke, if I say, here's a funny thing, instantly it puts pressure on you, because you think, well, maybe I don't find it funny. Then you might think, well, maybe I don't get it. Or you might have heard it before. So instantly there's loads of pressure being put on you as soon as I say, here's the funny thing. Whereas if I just do my normal stuff and then just do a quirky line at the end of it, if you get it, then you'll love it. If you don't, you don't know that you've missed anything. Whereas if you do a man walks into a pub, and people do this kind of jazz hands, da-da. Well, if anyone does that, I just think, no, what are you doing that for? So don't look as though you're trying too hard. Look as though it just effortlessly something has occurred to you. And that's what I'll do with ad-libbed lines. I'll do them as though they've just occurred to me. Even if they haven't, even if I ad-libbed them 3 years ago, but it got a good reaction, I'll store it away and do it again. Now, a lot of my stuff actually is stream of consciousness stuff that just comes while I'm talking. But just in case it isn't, I've always got some backup things like that. But particularly I find with English speaking audiences across the world, if you look like you're trying too hard and you look like you're steering them towards a carefully crafted, scripted, funny line, they almost fold their arms and think, oh, and instead of getting a laugh, you get a groan. And you don't want to groan because all a groan does is leads to more groans, whereas laughs will lead to more laughs. So you've just got to look like it's occurring to you. People love it if you're naturally witty, but if you look like you're scripted and clever, they'll think, oh, you fancy yourself a bit.
Right.
It's a weird reaction. You've got to look like you're making it up, even if you're not.
Right, and this is one of the things we've talked about before on the show about improv and spontaneity of this thing of people sometimes think, even especially with comedians, that you just get up on stage and do it, and yet it's not. It's like you've got a whole pool of resources because of your experience, because you've been in that mindset, you're practiced with thinking that way, and you probably got things you can pull on and say, oh, I could do this, or I could do it like that. And so it's not all sort of just come up with it on the spur of the moment. It's like, well, to a degree it's that, but it's from all this pool of resources that is specifically for that, because you've practiced it and you know what you're doing. Whereas some people who, and this is probably the same for people who just try and prepare a whole speech, whether it's funny or not, have it all scripted out, it ends up just sounding like they're reading it, which nobody wants to listen to as well. So that gets very uninteresting. In fact, I've even worked in the past with like professional coaches, because I work in the coaching industry as well, who do coaching sessions than just kind of reading from a script, reading questions from a script. That's really horrible for me. Someone like me, that's really horrible as well, because it kind of says you're not really listening. You're not thinking about what's the right question to ask next, or what should you. You're just following a formula, following a script of what you think, of what you've been told to say in coaching sessions, rather than any kind of intuition as to what should come next. And I think that is the thing. You develop an intuition for what works and what doesn't work, what feels natural. And but I think you have to have that sort of responsiveness to whoever you're working with.
Yeah, so I'm a great believer in going in with a set amount of stuff that I know if I think of nothing during my routine, I will stick to my set amount. So let's say it's a 30-minute talk. I will go in perhaps with 6 5-minute chunks, and each chunk might be a story with a message. Now, if something happens at the event and I think, oh, I could riff on what a previous speaker said, or I could have some fun with someone in the audience, I'll then think, right, all I've got to do is lose one of those 5-minute chunks. And it completely comes out. It's like razor blade, lift it out completely, squeeze it in, and I'll ad lib to fill that bit. Rather than what I see some people doing is they'll go in with 30 minutes, then something will happen. They'll have a laugh and a joke about that, and then they'll either overrun or they'll speed up and speak very quickly. And you think, no. So you've got to have whole chunks that you can take out to keep you on time if you want to do any ad-libby stuff. And the sort of ad-libby stuff I like is finding the connection between two things that don't appear to be very connected. There's loads of humor in that. So you'll see a lot of comedians, for example, that will be from one country and they'll be speaking in another country. And they'll talk about the differences between where they're from and where they are now. So, for example, I was speaking in South Africa, and in South Africa, they call traffic lights robots. Okay, so you can instantly see there could be quite a lot of things. So a woman did say to me, I asked for directions. She said, no, you go up the street there till you come to this giant robot, and then you turn right. And I'm thinking, if there's a giant robot up there, there's no way I'm going up that street. And so that's a difference between things. And that is something that really did happen. Woman said giant robot. And obviously I said, what are you talking about? She went, oh, that's what we call traffic lights. And then the connection between, so I was working, someone came to me the other day and they wanted some humor adding to a presentation. So I do a program with international speakers. It's called Tickle My Keynote, where they come along with their talk and they just say, can you put some funny lines in? So Tickle My Keynote. My mastermind group kept telling me it should be called Tickle Your Keynote because I was offering it. But I said, no, I like Tickle My Keynote better. It sounds more mischievous. And I imagine people ringing me up and I go, hello, Tickle My Keynote. And they go, hello, Joe, can you tickle my keynote? So yeah, it's definitely mine. Anyway, what was the point of this? Oh, yeah. So I was working with someone the other day and it was a talk for a convention that was people in the arts world, art dealers, painters, publicists for art. And the whole thing was that there's a lot of money laundering had been going on through the arts business. And so it was a talk on how to keep legal and how to keep the criminals out of art. So I've just got a bit of paper here. So just on a pad like that, I would draw, do you remember Venn diagrams from school?
Oh, yes.
So you draw those two circles like that.
Love a good Venn diagram.
Yeah, okay. So let's call one of them art and one of them crime. And I'm going to try this on you now. So I want you to think of something that goes in that middle one that connects art with crime that might be funny. So it might just be a phrase or a word or a concept. What links art with crime? Okay. Now, I realise that I'm being a bit mean on you there, so I'm going to help you out. So can you think of something that you would do with a painting that you might also do to a criminal? Like a criminal that hadn't actually done it, that someone had put them up, had made it look like they'd done it. Framed. Yeah. So a painting gets framed, and so could a criminal. So framed, let's put that in there. That's a good one. And the other one is, can you think of what you do to a painting that you might also do to a murderer, except we don't do it anymore in the UK, but we used to?
Would this be Priti Patel's favourite, hanging?
Hanging, yeah. You hang a painting on the wall, and we used to hang murderers, but now we don't. Just put them in prison for a long time. So, yeah, framing and hanging are both things that would go with art and with crime. And from that, I would then build some funny lines saying, at least we don't hang them anymore. And they go, you're a comedy genius. Except they wouldn't do it to me. They'd do it to the person I was coaching who'd done it. And actually, a lot of the people I coach say they feel guilty when they get a laugh and it's a joke I'd helped them with. And I go, but that's, politicians pay speechwriters, don't they? So why would anyone feel guilty about that? Or I've got some people I coach that feel bad when they naturally come up with a line and then the next day they use it again at a different event. And they say, well, I feel a bit like I've cheated it because I didn't think of it. I went, yes, you did. You thought of it yesterday. I know, but it wasn't natural. What I remember when I used to have a radio show, I used to interview loads of comedians. And I actually did a series for ITV where I visited comedy clubs to do TV reports on comedy clubs. And I interviewed a guy called Phil Jupiters, who actually became a good friend of mine because he supports my football team, West Ham. And I said to Phil Jupiters, so I saw you do 20 minutes at the Comedy Store last night. How much of that will be the same as the previous night and the night before that? And he said, all of it. It's exactly the same. I went, really? So I said, but it just looks like you're just chatting. He went, yeah, that's the secret. He said, if I'm touring and I'm perhaps doing, over 100 shows a year, why would I think up a different 20 minutes each night? I haven't got time to do that. He said, so we spend ages honing it down to that good, tight 20 minutes and then deliver it, perhaps for a year, and then write a whole new set, in the quiet summer months. And I think if you, as a speaker, if you think of something funny that goes in to things, so it might be about framing or hanging in an art crime talk. Every time you do the art crime talk, framing and hanging goes in, because when I started speaking, I used to feel a bit guilty about that because my background was radio, and every day you'd do a new radio show, and you'd have the same listeners, and they would think, well, he did that on Monday. But when you're speaking at an event, you have different listeners every time. So your best bits, do them again and again and again. And as speakers, we always want to do our new exciting stuff that we just thought of, and the stuff that we've been doing for years, we're not excited by. But, if you went to see Queen in concert at Wembley Stadium and they didn't do Bohemian Rhapsody and We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions, they just did stuff off their new album, you'd be disappointed, wouldn't you? So yeah. I think every talk has got to have your greatest hits in, plus some stuff off your new album, but don't just do the new stuff, because the stuff that you're bored with, if people haven't heard it before, that's probably the best stuff.
Yeah, it's really important to understand that as well. I think if you only ever do new material, and whether it's a speaker, comedian, or whatever, if you only ever do new stuff, you're never really going to have polished material. So you might get better at delivering on the spur of the moment, but you're never going to have anything that's really, really polished. And I think that's one of the things you probably do really need to stand out and excel in the industry, is to practice well enough to have stuff that's really polished. And I've seen this going to public speaking practice groups maybe actually sets you up to have that idea of it's always new. It should always be something new and different. And there's very few occasions where someone will come along and deliver the same speech again. It's only really, I think, in competition level where people will do that, and they'll do up to a certain level. And then I think in the final levels of the competition, they have to bring in a new one. But when I've seen people in my own speaking club practice their speeches and deliver them several times, you actually do see qualitative levels of improvement in how they deliver it, that it to a point where after time it almost feels like a different speech to the first one, even though it's the same material, it's the same content. It's well practiced enough to be delivered more effortlessly, much more naturally. It flows better, and not having to take those moments to think about what you're supposed to be saying next or anything like that. So I think that's a really powerful point. If this is one of the tools they use in the music industry to introduce new songs that they want to be hits. They'll play them in between some of the most popular songs, something you're already very familiar with, and so that it doesn't feel like it's such a new thing for you. It's kind of placed in the middle of all this familiarity, and that is like very unlikely to notice that unless you know that that's a strategy that gets used. But it's suggesting something similar when it comes to speaking, right?
Yes, I think so. And I've been to speaking clubs. I used to go to the Toastmasters in Twickenham in southwest London, where I live, and I enjoyed the humorous speaking contests. But there seemed to be very much a structure and a formula and a right and a wrong way of doing it. And I always think, break out from all of that. I would often, in the feedback sessions, they go, oh yeah, you do this wrong and you do that wrong, and then at the end of the night I'd win best speaker. And I'd think, okay, so I think you have to break the rules. And if you think of in comedy, someone like Steve Martin, who does it his structure's brilliant, he does everything by the book, and he's very widely regarded. But someone like Robin Williams, who's was just a wild card, who just did it off the top of his head, was much more likable and lovable and funnier because he was spontaneous and you didn't know where he was going. So I do think it's good to learn all those rules that the speaking clubs teach you, and then to completely disregard them and go your own way. And if you are in a contest, people might go, well, yeah, they've actually done it, but it's almost like on the judges' scorecard, they wouldn't get as many points. But if it's what is it like? It's like in ice dancing, Torval and Dean ice dancing at the Olympics, where there's one where it's like technical, and so you wouldn't score very highly on that, but like star quality, you'd score very high. Artistic interpretation, something like that. So I do think learn all the rules, but then don't be afraid to break every single one of them, because the rules are great and it gives you a great structure. All that Toastmaster stuff, great structure. But then why would you want to live in a structure? Because particularly if I'm speaking at a conference, I want to be different to everybody else. And if everyone's learned the same way, then I don't get much better with practice. But what I think I am better at is being able to be slightly different. And so I think that's what I encourage humorous people to do, be slightly different. But the big thing with speaking and humor is you have to keep your status. You have to make sure that you're a wit, high status, not a clown, low status. And the difference being that you laugh with a wit and you laugh at a clown. And that's, you don't, if you clown about, and you do funny faces and voices and fall about and swear, people will laugh, but they'll be laughing at you. And then at the end, when you deliver your final message where you want them to do something or some behavioral change, buy something, sign up for something, when you get to your big message, if you've clowned about, they'll go, oh, it's the funny one, and they won't believe you as much. So keep your status. Wit, not a clown. Laugh with, not at.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, I've often said that you have to, as a speaker, as a presenter, you have to be prepared to go wherever you need to go to engage and entertain your audience. But what you're saying is that there is actually a limit to that. It's like if they start laughing at you, you kind of lost them to some degree. You definitely don't want that. You don't want to be the joke. You want to make sure that the jokes are from you, that people are laughing with you, which is a good principle in life in general, not just on the stage, right? Is that we don't really generally want to be that person who's just tripped over in a field and landed face first in the cow pat and has everyone laughing at them. It's the humiliation side we can do. But I think, what if you accidentally find yourself there? Can you come back from that?
Yeah. So I've seen. I saw a speaker once. There was a stage that was 4 blocks, and he was moving around quite vigorously, and the 2 blocks had come slightly apart, and his foot went down between the 2 blocks of the stage, and everyone just laughed. And I thought, how's he going to recover from this? And he said, sorry about this, it's just a stage I'm going through. And I thought, well, that's genius. And then afterwards I had a chat with him, and he said that the other one that he'd been thinking about was, I will now take questions from the floor, which was quite good. And I thought, that's impressive when you can do that. So don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. I mean, if ever I'm in trouble, and when I mean in trouble, it means I'm not getting the laughs I think I should have, then I will be self-deprecating. One of my clients I'm working at the moment keeps saying self-depreciating, and it's got to the point where I should have said it early on in the coaching, and now
no, you've left it too late.
I can't correct you now because you've been saying it for quite a few weeks. Self-deprecating is a guaranteed way to get a laugh at yourself. So, for example, if I'm speaking in America or Germany, I don't want to make jokes about Americans or Germans because they'll hate me. So if I'm in Germany, I'll say, oh, in London, we do this, and talk about the ridiculous things that we do in London. And they will laugh because they go, ha, in London, they are so silly. And also, he seems like quite a nice bloke because he can joke about himself. My German's not quite as good as my South African and Welsh. But do you see the point? If you don't want to be attacking people, because then they're like, oh, who needs to come over here? Having a go. So I remember an American speaker once came to a conference I was at, and he thought it would be a good idea for his walk-on music to be God Save the Queen, which is our national anthem. Okay, God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. He walked onto that, and his thinking was everyone would stand up because it's the national anthem. And he'd be able to have a video saying, oh, brilliant, I got a standing ovation, I haven't even said anything yet. But actually, the audience, which was European but about 90% British, just sat down thinking, what's he doing coming onto our anthem? You can't do that, mate. That's our tune, And so everyone just folded their arms and waited.
How dare you?
And he got a little bit flustered, and then he started talking about how he loved the royal family, and in fact, he really fancied Princess Kate. And he thought we'd like that, and we're like, don't come over here, mate, making jokes about our Germans, which is, like what we talk about the royal family because of the German heritage. Yeah. And a few other people started putting on Twitter, anyway, she's not a princess, she's a duchess, which is such a British thing. It's like, they'll accept anything, but not a mistake,
Some things you just shouldn't mess with her on a stage, too divisive.
Yeah. And that is tuning in to the sense of humor of wherever you are. So don't look as though, people in the UK will make jokes about the royal family all the time because we feel like we've paid our taxes for them. We can joke about them. And also, I love the Queen, but I'd always make a joke about it because that's what we do. But what we don't want is an outsider coming to have a go at our Queen. Then it's like, oh, no, we're allowed to do it, but you're not.
Yeah, you get a very us and them kind of thing. So you have to get on side with your audience. It was reminding me when you're talking about a speaker. I remember one time an American speaker who came to present in the UK when I was still based there doing event work and stuff, and started off his speech to a large auditorium of people saying, I want to start with a prayer to God. And everyone was, no, and over half the room just walked out right then and there. It's like, yeah, that maybe wasn't a good way to start. Like, that's a really good way to misjudge your audience. But in the US, I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid if somebody wanted to start. So it was like a personal development seminar. If someone wanted to start like that, you would assume that most of the people have some sort of God belief. But in a UK event, didn't go down very well at all. You really have to know your audience and get on side with them.
Yeah, no, you do. You have to really you have to research. The biggest thing I think beforehand is researching who your audience are, what they know, what they need to know, and also what works with them and what you must definitely avoid. I speak a lot in the Middle East, and there's things that I'd say in the UK I definitely wouldn't say in the Middle East.
Sure.
And I like you with the Christianity thing with American speakers, they just think it's fine. Even when I've said to some of them, I don't think you should do that in the UK. Oh no, it's fine. We do it all the time back home. Yeah, I just wouldn't do it in the UK. But they'll still feel like it's not up to you, Jeremy, to decide about my God. So they'll do it, and it will die, and they'll go, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Well. So that's why whenever I go to a country I'm not familiar with, I'll say to people, is there anything I should know about here? And it might just be something like hand gestures that might mean something completely different in a country like for example, in Japan, you bow your head when you greet someone like that. Yeah. But I see a lot of people when they're greeting Japanese people, instead of bowing their head like that, they'll kind of go down like that, but still look up at them with their eyes, which is, you have to. The whole point is showing you're lowering your eyes. It's not nothing to do with your head. If your eyes go up like that, well then, so just the cultural things you have to be aware of. There was one American speaker that I did take the mickey out of once on stage because of something he'd said, and he said to me in front of the audience, Jeremy, I think you're in danger of being a little bit patronizing. And I said, oh, we say patronizing? Which didn't happen.
You do know that means talking down to people. Yeah, there are some good ways to handle that. Yeah, it's all important things. People who want to be a bit funny in their presentations, is there anyone who maybe should avoid it, who maybe is like, again, this isn't going to work for you?
Yeah, well, if you're not funny at all, and in your real life no one has ever laughed at anything you said, then probably don't do it. But how many people is that? Most people will get a smile at something. So I think try it. If it's not for you, then don't do it. I like to give people a toolbox of things that can make them better speakers. And one of the tools is like a rapier wit. Think of it as like that. Right, try that. Oh yeah, you need to use that a lot. And somebody else will say, you could use it a bit. You could use it sparingly. You don't touch it because you're going to cut your fingers on that rapier wit. So, but I'd say there's only about 10% of people that should completely avoid humor. It's the same way with an audience. I always think there's 10% of an audience that will laugh freely at anything, and 10% that won't laugh at anything at all. And it's the other 80% in the middle you've got to persuade. Right. And some people laugh really easily. Now, the 80% in the middle, maybe 40% of them will laugh if somebody else laughs, but someone else needs to start it. It's like a snowball that needs to start rolling down the hill. And I'm probably in that 40% that will laugh, but only if somebody else has laughed first. I don't want to be the first one to laugh. So they're like it's like a barbecue. If you think they're little firelighters, they're the 10% of easy laughers. And as soon as they catch light, then the coals around them will catch fire. And that's why you want your audience close in. It's sitting next to each other. You don't want them spread around on big tables in a massive room and they're all at the back, because it'd be like a barbecue where the coals have been spread out too early and the heat disappears, and you need heat. And that's why you need a low ceiling. Comedy clubs, low ceilings, dark, bright lights on the stage so that it's really focused. You're trying to do comedy outdoors, in an open air festival, all of the sound goes up like that rather than going sideways and infecting your neighbors. And then you've got the other 40% that will only ever smile, probably, and then 10% won't laugh at all. And so ideally, if I've got an audience of 100, then I want a couple in the front row that are going to laugh and spread, obviously you don't know who they are, but as soon as somebody in your audience laughs, focus more stuff on them. And it's a bit like throwing paraffin on the flame, getting that ignited. Good, that bit's good doing over there. Now there's someone over there laugh. Focus a bit over there at them, and then someone over there, focus that on that, and then you've got these little flames, and gradually the whole thing will catch light, apart from the 10% who will always sit there going, well, I know something funny is going on, I don't quite get it, but everyone else is laughing, so I'll just smile.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never really considered the sort of potential effects of the environment that you deliver humor in, or the logistics of delivery in terms of how funny it makes things. But yeah, it makes sense that would be important. It's a great thing to consider, which is why I like to have conversations with people like yourself who have expertise in these areas and great experience to share. And so you've already mentioned that you teach a lot of this to people. You help people with their presentations. You help people to be funnier with their own delivery. And so, if there's anyone watching this live or the replay, I don't think we've got anyone live at the moment. But if there's anyone watching the replay who wants to find out more about how they can come and work with you and be funnier in their presentations, how can they do that?
Yeah, so my website's jeremynicholas.co.uk, and I have sort of 3 levels that I work with people at. There's my entry level, which is my group program, which is a 6-week program, and you get to watch 12 5-minute videos on how to be funnier, and it's techniques, skills, things to avoid, things to watch out for, definite guaranteed ways to get a laugh, structures that you can use, like doing 3 things. You know how in speaking, speakers always do 3 things. In comedy speaking, we do normal thing, weird thing, or big, small, global, local. So there's 3 things, but the third one is weird. And it sets up that pattern like 3 people going to a pub, and one does something, second one does something similar, third one does something completely different. So set up, reinforce, subvert. So that's one 5-minute video will be on that, and there's 12 of those with little structures for guaranteed laughs. And then there's 6 live Zoom calls across 6 weeks, and then there's an online mastermind group where people put their homework and everyone else comments on it, and we do it limited to 8 people at a time can sign up for it. And I've done that 4 times in lockdown. There's a new one starting in January if anyone wants to do that. So that's the entry level one. That's the group one, because obviously I can do 8 people in one go, so it's much cheaper. The second one is one-to-one coaching, where you might have a particular talk coming up and you might need, say, 3 Zoom sessions to get that into a funny way, or you might just want to learn some techniques and one-on-one stuff. So I've done that a lot with people that have got a best man speech, or father of the bride speech, or a bride speech, or mother of whatever. Or I've done it with people delivering eulogies at funerals, because often they want to make those quite humorous. And then a lot of it, just boring chief executives that know they're boring, and they say, someone says, I should come to you, Jeremy, you'll make this funny. And I go, yes, I will. Those are just online Zoom things. And then the most expensive thing is Tickle My Keynote, which is like the others, except I'll actually write the funny lines for you. Rather than coaching you on how to find the funny, I'll actually write them for you. And obviously that's why it's more expensive, because you can then go away and for the next 10 years use those lines, and I've only been paid once.
Yeah.
So yeah, jeremynicholas.co.uk. Don't go to jeremynicholas.com, because that's an actor.
So you probably won't get the same level of quality on your help with your speeches if you go to the .com instead of the .co.uk. So they should definitely come and work with you. And I like that you've built in your residuals to your highest ticket item. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, I've been to so many speaking events over the years that I know all the tricks. Like, you've got to have 3 levels, and the premium one's got to be so expensive that everyone actually goes for the second one. But if you didn't have the third one, they'd always go for the first one. But actually, mine is group, then there's one-to-one, and then there's do it for you. Because I've done a lot of work with companies on how to be a good conference MC. And I'll train all their people on how to be a good conference MC. And do you know what mainly happens from that? At the end of it, they'll go, actually, could you just be our MC? And I'll say, yes, I can. So I'm a great believer in that, you show people how to do something, and then they go, God, that looks really hard. Could you just do it for me? And it's the same way with Tickle My Keynote. I go, I like the idea of being funny, but I've never had a funny thought in my life. All right, well, I can do you 20. So with Tickle My Keynote, what happens is, I'll have a 3-hour session with them where they'll deliver their stuff, or I'll watch it on video or whatever, and we'll talk about things, like that art crime thing, finding the things that are different, all of that. And then I'll go away for a week, and then I'll come back and I'll have written 20 lines, exactly 20 funny lines. And then I'll spend an hour with them on Zoom saying, which of these do you like? This is how you deliver it. Try that one. Yeah, okay, now try putting the emphasis on this word. Yeah, no, that's not working. So it's a little bit bespoke, but what you're paying for is that bit in the middle where I go away and come up with 20 things, which will come to me mainly when I'm walking in Richmond Park with the dog, or I'm singing in the shower, or I'm driving somewhere if we're allowed to drive at the moment. And that's most people, I think, when they're trying to write funny lines, they sit down at their laptop and think, right, okay. And then they wonder why they come up with stuff that just sounds like a joke that they would be in a joke book, So
yeah. I think we're still in the UK. You're still allowed to drive to Barnard Castle, are you not, to test your eyes?
Only if you've got an optician's appointment, yeah, you can.
So that's good. So yeah, I had hoped to actually come on one of your courses recently, and ended up having to move out. Well, not having to. So ended up moving out of my previous apartment and got a bit waylaid with all of that. So hopefully, we'll be coming and joining myself in January. That's my plan.
Great,
Because I think there's a lot to learn from you, and I've learned a lot just from from our chat today. And as I know, I couldn't have had a better guest for today's show, because I think most people had I dropped off sort of 5 minutes into the presentation with the internet knockout, might have struggled to carry it on, whereas you just started telling everyone a story, which is wonderful, and so that makes you the ideal guest to have on my first ever live version of the show. Let me just, before we do close things off for today, are there any final words or thoughts you'd like to leave everyone with?
I think only use humor if you like it. Don't feel there's a thing, don't know why, in the speaking world people have this idea, oh, you should always start with a joke. I don't know whoever said that, but that's bonkers. Don't don't do jokes, do stories, because jokes put pressure on. So don't start with a joke, just do a funny line that chuck in, and then if they like it, great. If they don't, fine. That for me is my big. So my big things are jokes, no; stories, yes; wit, not clown. And probably the biggest thing, and I haven't mentioned this at all, the biggest thing is if you say something funny, pause and let them laugh. Because I'll see so many speakers that will say something funny and then they'll carry straight on, and the audience start laughing, and then they go, oh, hang on, I'm missing the next bit. So they stop. And then the next time they won't laugh at all because they're worried that you're going to miss the next bit. So that's my big takeaway. Get to the funny bit, stop, wait. And sometimes you'll have to wait maybe 2 minutes before they laugh, but they will. If you just stand there quietly for 2 minutes, they'll laugh eventually. And so what I used to do early on, when I didn't really know if I was funny, is I would just have a drink and I'd say, da, 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 da. And I'd wait, and then they go, I think he said something funny. Oh yeah, that is quite funny. And then they'd start laughing. So water, I think people would think, crikey, he must be diabetic or something, he's drinking water all the time. But it was literally, no, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for you to laugh without looking like I'm waiting for you to laugh. Yeah, so the pause does two things. One is it gives them time to laugh, and one is that it gives them permission to laugh and kind of hints that I think I might have said something funny.
And also hydrates you, which is even better when you're presenting.
But don't have too much, otherwise, if you're doing a long set, you might need a wee.
Yeah, that's probably not such a good idea if you end up having to rush off and hold it in whilst you're presenting. Great words of wisdom and advice, and it's been a real delight having you as a guest today. My apologies for the technical issues. I'm going to probably go and find somebody to pin that all on and say something very delightful to them about why did the internet cut out partway through my call. But Jeremy Nicholas, thank you so much for coming and being my guest today on my first ever live show of Speaking of Influence. Next week, my guest will be the amazingly talented speaker and presenter Shola Kay. She's a TEDx speaker. She is a former singer. She's a very talented lady, and we're talking about things like emotional intelligence, about her experiences doing a TEDx talk and things like that. So not a live show next time, but definitely one you won't want to miss. So see you next time for Speaking of Influence.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Before you go, remember to like and subscribe, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. It really helps with the show. Also, why not pick up a copy of my new ebook, The 5 Key Beliefs of Bulletproof Business Speakers, available from my website, presentinfluence.com. If you want to get in touch, if you're interested in working with me or finding out about any of my courses or trainings, or having me come and speak for one of your events or to your company or organization, email me, john@presentinfluence.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or maybe you want me to be a guest on your show, visit matchmaker.fm. It's a site that connects podcasters with hosts and vice versa, and you will find me and the Speaking of Influence podcast on there. I look forward to seeing you again next time for another episode of Speaking of Influence.